But baby girl, I just can't wait to start to eat you off your plate. We'll be making love.
Hello, and welcome to Conversations with Reverend G. I'm Reverend Grenetta Mason, aka Reverend G. I'm here every Monday night from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on WEMS Radio, bringing you spiritual conversations. My guests, they come from all walks of life. They are artists, they are ministers, they are entrepreneurs, they just do so many different things. And what we try to do here is bring you inspiring conversation. We talk about the spiritual tools that we use in hopes that some of them will be useful for you. The goal is to have spirituality be an everyday conversation. Use it in everything that you do without having it be a big deal. Having it be just such a part of your life that it is natural. And we want to break it down in these conversations so that you can do that. If you want to find out more about the information that I share and the inspirational quotes that I share, you can find me on Facebook, Reverend Grenetta Briggs Mason, and on Instagram as Reverend Grenetta. I know that now, times are really rough right now. So we come on the show and we hope to bring information to help us get through these times. We want to bring information on healing spiritually and we want to heal mentally. Today, I have a very, very special guest. And my special guest today is Lana Impure. Lana is a published author. She is also an artist, a DJ, and a music producer. And I've known her all my her life, right? Because her mother and I are really good friends, and she was my first roommate and friend when I first came to New York. So we've been in each other's life for a long, long time. And I'm excited to have her on the show. And hopefully, when you leave the show, you would be inspired. And you know, I'm always about bringing joy and living your best life with grace and ease. So, tonight, we're going to talk to Alana about all the things that she's doing. And hopefully, you'll be inspired. And I'm sure you will be. Come on, Alana, come on in. Hello, she's connecting.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you. You
I'm
have your video.
yeah. No, I'm here.
Yeah, now I can see you. How are you today?
Good. How you doing? Can you hear me over the fan? I have it on low. I
Yes,
need.
I can hear you.
Oh,
Um, introduce yourself to everybody. I just gave them a brief overview, but introduce yourself.
oh, okay. I don't want to repeat what you said, but my
I just
name's
gave
Lana.
the overview.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, my name's Lana or Lana Impure. If you guys are on Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat, and I am a DJ as well as a published author and a podcaster. Other than that, I like to read. You know, I'm all for my people, as you can see. Black Power, Black Lives Matter. And other than that, I'm just an average girl. It's really it. I don't have a long intro. It's just I'm just me. That's it.
Sure. I know your book. I wanted to talk about your book and talk about like what inspired you because there's a lot in the book and there's a lot to talk about because it's really about what's going on today and your perspective on what's going on. So talk about your book, to the name of it and how you were inspired to write this.
Sure. Well, actually, I have it here. I can show you, but I'll also talk about it. Just so I don't repeat anything. So this is it right here.
Okay.
I can see it. So it's called Tajiri, and it's a conversation on the truth And I don't mean the truth they taught you in your history class. And fun fact, Tajiri is actually my middle name, which is Swahili. So I thought that was pretty cool. And the reason why I named it Tajiri, I felt like with what I was talking about, it kind of brought everything home in a way, to like the motherland, home, Africa and stuff like that. But to your original question, I've been actually wanting to write this book for maybe 11 years or so. That sounds long, but been a while. And I kind of came to this topic or this subject matter with all that's been going on, with politics and racism and Trump and all the other fun stuff. And I kind of really started working on it a couple months ago, right after George Floyd was murdered, and everything kind of just spewed out into the book. I had a lot of stuff to say, but the book really touches on different aspects, not just Black Lives Matter, but politics, slavery, ancestors, systematic racism, schooling, all different things, but everything ties in. So, each chapter kind of course, builds on each other, but it's different topics. It's not just about one thing. I wanted to touch from my perspective, on, history and what they teach you in school, what they don't teach you in school, and, stuff like that. So it's a lot. I have a lot to say. And there are some chapters I'm kind of really angry, but it all makes sense at the end of the book.
Is there a particular message that you would like to talk about tonight? One part of the book. Give us some part of the book. Because I, as I look through it, there's just so many things, and I know we weren't taught a lot. And you named it that, and I get that you put a lot of different things in it, but what can you say? Talk about one part of it that means a lot to you at this point.
It would probably have to be the chapter about our ancestors, or my ancestors. I've been really big on Black Lives Matter, even since I was a little girl. I would play with Barbie dolls. I would always ask for the black Barbie doll. I would always look for the girl who was different in the bunch. I have an Addie doll as well too from the American Girl store. So I've always felt compelled to embrace my people. And that chapter for me personally sticks out because it's at least for me, I shed some truth on our history, not just because they don't teach you in school, but just from my life, what I've experienced, what I've been taught, and things like that. So for me, that's in a way my favorite chapter because I really touch on, Africa, where we came from, how we were brought over here, how even now, still to this day, there's a lot of issues and unrest when there doesn't need to be. So, for me, that chapter for me resonates to me in my heart. Every other chapter is, my favorite, but that one particularly is. I want that to be like the big, big picture. That makes sense.
You named it, and you're not talking about what they taught you, right? And who is the audience? When you say, who would you say the audience is? And would you put this in the school? Would you say it would be a book that you would want to put on the reading list for everybody to understand some historical points and have a historical perspective?
No, most definitely. I would like it to be, I guess, a school book, curriculum school book. Is that what they still call it? It's been a while, but no, the audience really is anybody who wants to read. And that sounds broad, but anybody who wants to, from my eyes, learn the truth from what I believe wasn't taught in history classes. Because in history class, they kind of teach you about the Holocaust and the Civil War. And there's like 2 pages of Black history in the back of the book, and then it's just pictures. So, and they don't teach you everything that has happened with our people in this country, what we've done, what we've built, what we're doing and trying to do, the land we own, stuff like that. So I would want it or hope to put it in the school curriculum, as well as, anybody who wants to read stuff or something that's not the norm, if that makes sense. Because my book is not the norm.
Yeah, well, it's not the norm because of the topics and the perspective.
Correct. From what I'm trying to portray, correct. That is correct.
Okay, great. I know that you have a part in there when you talk about the racial inequality, and I know Black Lives Matter means a lot to you. And I know that, I have people from all generations on my show. So I'm
Yeah.
particularly interested in your generation as a millennial, right?
Mm.
What is your perspective? Because we really want to tap into, what's going on? What are you thinking? And there are a couple of areas I want to talk to you about from the perspective of the millennials. And I think that we really would be interested to understand how you feel about the racial inequality. We could start there, because you said you wrote the book after George Floyd.
Right, right. And as you know, there's been countless others before and after. But for millennial, at least for me, there is a lot of unrest that people don't want to talk about, and it sucks. Not to sound, but it does. And a lot of people, they don't want to talk about something that's uncomfortable, right? That they're stepping out of the norm because that would mean that they're wrong. Whether it's, African Americans, Caucasians, Latinos, we all play a part in society, right? And for me, as a millennial, growing up, and at least these past 4 years with Trump, it's been a lot. And to be honest, it's an old saying, but we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And it's just for a change to happen, at least in my opinion, it has to start somewhere, right? It can't just be more things keep happening and nothing will change. It has to start somewhere. So for millennial, it's difficult because we're trying to do different things and mingle and groove with different people, and then it's looked at as different or weird because 40 years ago, 50 years ago, you couldn't do that. It was looked at as, taboo. So for me, at least, it is hard walking into today's society because you don't know where to go. You don't want to be too sensitive because everybody's sensitive nowadays. You don't want to step on your toes. So it's difficult, when it doesn't have to be. At least that's what I believe. And, for the people who are up top and people who, can make a change or make a difference, it's unfortunate that's not happening. And the things that has happened with Trump and even during COVID didn't really, need to happen. And not just with Black Lives Matter, but with a whole lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But to your question, or your comment statement, it's difficult, at least for me, being millennial, because you don't know. You want to do something different, but you also want to be down for the cause. You also want to be in different aspects of groups, but you also don't want to forget your people. So it's like Sophie's choice. So it's a little difficult, frustrating. I'm not one of those who likes to get in the minutia of it all, but it is difficult, at least with the peers that I've spoken to,
With your peers.
Mm-hmm.
If you had any recommendations, what I guess that would be really hard because we don't really know what to do. Right? So it would be interesting if you had a perspective on it, any kind of recommendations from your perspective. It's just
Probably.
it's like get it together, right? It's the recommendation, right? Stop killing Black people.
No, probably with the perspective, or at least some thoughts to you, I would be like, maybe we should talk to our, not elderly, but people who've been around this earth longer. I think personally, we can't do it alone. Everybody needs help. Too many hands in pots. It's never a good thing, but it always can be a good thing sometimes. Mm-hmm. So I feel like we should all work together instead of working in different groups, because everybody working in different aspects, you can't get anything done because there's too many views on it. Not like you shouldn't have different views, but it's just if we work together in some way instead of.
How do we come together? And I get what you're saying. How do we come together with all of our perspectives, right?
Right.
And all of our generations together and make a difference, right? And as you said, we bring some wisdom to the
right. Of course. Yeah, I can't deny
that. And I do understand at this time it being very difficult to navigate right now.
Yeah.
Because you were just like at the brink of starting your career. You just about to step out and get started, and here we're in this whole thing right now, right? And I always talk about healing. You know, how do we kind of heal and have hope and stay on top of it until things pass and change? Because we know things will change, right? And we have hope that they'll get better and maybe they'll get worse before they get
Right.
better. But at the same time, we know, I'm very sure that things will change and we'll roll into a positive way. Now, I'm not saying how long it's going to take or what we have to go through to get there, but I'm going to ride the wave. uh, it's all gonna be good and we're gonna get there, right? So a part of it is to healing, you know,
Mhm.
and for us, we have deep, deep, deep hurt and wounds because we've been
Mhm.
in it much longer than you have. You've witnessed a lot of it through the reading and all of that, but yours is a different experience, I would
Mhm.
say.
No,
And
no, that's true. It is a different experience. I guess in a way it's good that I didn't go through that experience. I mean, it sounds crazy, but I I don't think anybody wants to go through racism. That's what I'm talking about. I don't think anybody, whatever nationality, or it's not cool. But I do agree with healing. We are in a phase of healing, at least some of us. But it's so hard to heal because it takes time, like they say, when 10, 15 things happen on top of the first thing. So you're still dealing with the first healing process, and then 5, 10 things are thrown back at you, and then you guys start over again. So it's like a never ending cycle. It's a loop. It's always a never ending cycle of Black folks, in a way, trying to uh, center their emotions, if that makes sense. Because we're always the ones being told to calm down, and we're always the ones being told, well, stop acting so ratchet and ghetto. But it comes from a place, you know, it comes from a source of anger and hurt and, you know, misunderstanding that we seem to never get out of. So
right.
there's always that issue. Like I said, no one's talk about that. But like I said, sometimes you have to step out of your comfort zone to solve. So that's just from what I've gathered, and that also ties into the book, and how I how I walk my life, how I move, you know, and also ties in center with God as well too. I wasn't really that into him in a way a couple of years ago, but since things have happened in my life and in the world, it's just brought me closer, you know, walking with that journey with him. So all that to say, prayer does work. People don't believe it, but it does work, you know. And you know, God really does know, you know, what's on your heart. Because you can be praying about one thing, but He actually really knows what you're trying to talk about. So you can't fool Him. That's what I have to say. You can't
You
fool Him.
know, we do. I was going to move to what your spiritual journey, right? What that has been like from growing up. I know you grew up, and I know you all were in the church, really in the church, because your mom worked in the church, right?
Right. Right.
So, what was it like for you from little to teenage to now, right? you know, because I knew you grew up Christian,
Yeah.
right? Right.
Yeah.
Um,
Um. Well, you know, when you're a kid or in Sunday school, you're kind of forced to go to
That's right.
church.
You're forced, right? Then when you weren't forced.
Yes, you're kind of forced to go to church. But I mean, I enjoyed Sunday school with my grandma and peers and stuff. But you know, as you got older, I kind of stepped away from it, and you know, to the middle school teen years, I guess my mom was really working in the church, so you kind of like had to go to church. It was kind of hard to go to church, not go to church, excuse me. And since we lived in a small town, everybody knew everybody. So if you weren't there for like 3 Sundays, they would like, you know, that feeling. You just had to go to church. But growing up in that church versus the church I was going to when I was a little girl was different because one was a Baptist church and this church, Christ Church, is a huge mega church that accepts, you know, all creeds of life, which is cool. So I got to see different people in the church, you know, whites, Latinos, mixed, gays, all the other stuff. Whereas in the Baptist church, it was just, you know, small little church for family and friends, and church went from 8 to 4 p.m. all Sunday, but this church was it was different. You had different things. So throughout my life, I guess, as I got older, you know, to think on my own, I went in and out with God, went in and out praying and stuff like that. Because you know, before I would just pray because I went on Sunday, but now it's more of whenever I need, you know, second advice, whenever I need to understand something. It's more of like not a forced thing, but like an organic thing, which I think is a good thing to have a relationship with God. Organic, not forced, or you're just doing it because you sinned 5 minutes ago. You shouldn't just pray on Sundays and Wednesday nights. You should pray all days, I believe, because that's the true, you know, meaning of walking with Christ. Not just when you've done something or you're bored or you're trying to, show off with somebody. You should pray all the days. So with that being said, growing up in and out of a church, it was different, but I don't regret it. It shaped who I am today, so I don't regret it. So,
Yeah, you did come away with something that you can use now, right? And
yes.
you talk about prayer. We talk about prayer as one of the practices because here we talk about, the spiritual toolkit and what are your practices that you go to. And also, I like what you said about having it be just a part of your life, right? Prayer now is not forced, it's just like a part of your life, right? So,
Mhm.
and that's always really good when you can get a practice that, is not forced. Like, sometimes if you say you want to meditate, oh, you got to meditate, or you got to do this, or you got to do that. It's really about what comes natural and what can you go to that feels really, really good.
Correct.
Um, let's talk about DJ Fire, right? I know that you're a DJ, right? When did what inspired you to do music? And it's interesting because now when I have artists on the show, I talk about during COVID, have you been inspired or have you just been muted? You know,
Mhm.
the impact on your creativity. But talk about how you became a DJ and DJ Fire, where the name came from.
Well, actually, my dad actually he DJed. He went to Rutgers in New Brunswick, and he DJed throughout college and afterlife and stuff like that. So, growing up in a household full of records and turntables and music flowing throughout was really awesome because my dad was really big into 80s 90s house music, and my mom was into 70s. She was a 70s baby, so the house was always flowing with records and music and stuff like that. And I would watch him play in our garage with the two turntables, and I thought it was so cool. I'm like, I want to do that, but I just said it. I didn't do anything about it, and this was like 5, 6 years ago. So off and on, I would try and play and do some stuff, but maybe the past year and a half or so, I kind of really got into it, DJing on my own. I didn't really take it seriously because I thought it was a lot of work. I was just being lazy for a bit, but I figured, well, if everybody else is doing it, I can do it too. So let me try it. So the past year or so, I really started listening to music, downloading music. I would buy the equipment, the controllers and the headphones and the mixers and stuff like that, and really dive into it. Plus, when I do my research, I found there's a lot of female DJs. So I thought that was really cool. In that world, it's competitive, but to see female DJs on the stage was really comforting. So I would say my whole life, but with the DJ aspect, it's like a year into that, a year or so. But with the COVID thing you said, you would think that it would keep me muted, but I actually did a lot of work during this whole lockdown. I started, doing music, making music, not on the controller, but on a software. So I would make my own music and songs and things like that since like March. And I would just drop songs here and there, and people started liking it. I haven't really found my groove yet, like the genre. I kind of try to do different things because you're playing for the crowd. You can't play what you want, even though you want to. So and then also with the book happened during COVID. I don't know where this inspiration came from, but it just all spewed out. And since then, and even before COVID, I've just always loved music. I just saw, and like real music, like the 80s, 90s real music, 60s, 70s Motown, and music like that. Nothing wrong with music today, but I mean like actual music, you can understand what they're talking about, like real music, on, the A and
I
B.
love house music, so I was really surprised.
Yeah, house music
But
is
I guess when that's coming from your background, now I understand because I was really surprised. I was like, house music, right? Which was really interesting to
Mm.
hear that that's what the music, and the name DJ Fire was inspired through um
Well, that actually is like a funny story. Actually, I was having a conversation with somebody like 3 years ago when I was talking about doing music, but not really. And they're an artist. And I don't know, we were talking about something. And then since my last name is Crossley, and the music I like is always fast paced or fast beat, they kind of like combined something. It was like a whole story, but they kind of combined like making records and tracks and spitting that fire out. And the name DJ kind of just came with that. So they kind of combined my name, with DJ Fire. So that's what that story came from and that name came from. But I recently changed it to Zalana and Pure. Just that's like the personal healing reason, but the original name was DJ Fire. So that's where that came from. I just stuck with it. I just liked it and I stuck with it. I thought it was a cool name. And I just kind of
So you
flowed.
said Lana and Pierre is now the next stage to that?
Right. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. That kind of came a couple months ago. I was praying about something, maybe a family member or a friend, and then this name just came out of nowhere. And I was like, oh, that could work. It just awoke something in me, that name, to put my name with Impure. Just something awoke like an awakening. And I just kind of felt compelled to do it. And it's just organic. It just flows. Everything's been flowing since I've changed the name in a way. So I like it. I still have DJ Fire, but I like the Impure. It's like step 2, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay, because
Or
it's
level 2.
I get it because I'm like DJ Fire now with Lana and Pierre, so I can see the evolution. It's kind of interesting going from the fire to the impure, right?
That's true. This is one way to look at it, yes.
Right. Um, I know that you do podcasts, right? And talk about, where your podcasts are and what messages are you trying to get out there? Who's the audience? A lot of people do podcasts, right? So it'll be interesting
That's
to
true.
talk about what yours are about and who you're reaching.
No, yeah. Before I started the podcast, I was on actually a few podcasts talking about music and different things and supporting. And I thought, well, this is a platform. I have something I want to say. So let me try doing that. So the podcast kind of came about a month ago. And I wanted to, well, for now, it's mostly my book, talking about my book, because the book is out now with the ebook and paperback. But there are some people who like to listen, while they're doing stuff. So
Mhm.
now my podcast platform is my book. So I read each chapter each week,
Oh,
talk a
okay.
little bit about why I wrote the chapter, what it meant to me, and things like that. But the whole basis behind Lana and Pure's podcast really is to give another voice on subjects such as my book and other aspects. It's a space where we can be, creative and there's no judgment, just a free zone to be yourself. So with the audience with that, it's really anybody who just wants to listen, who has a creative mind, or who walks with God. Like I said, there's no judgment. So anybody's welcome. But that's kind of like the background of why I wanted to start the podcast, as well as doing the audiobook for my book, because I know a lot of people like to listen while they're doing stuff. I do too. So I figured that's one way to get it, as well as talking about other aspects, in society as well too. So
You mentioned walking with God, right? Do you talk about spirituality on your podcast, or when you say walking with God, you're referring to, you say walk with God, no judgment. If they don't walk with God, right? Welcome, right? No, I'm just curious, right? um to because you said walk with God a couple of times, right? So what is that? How does that play into your life, right? Because now we can move to start talking about we talk about the spiritual toolkit, right? And we talk about what items are in the toolkit. So I know for sure one for you is prayer, right?
Mhm.
What other items do you use? And I talk about it because people are inspired by different things, and at some point prayer may work forever, right? And then maybe you'll shift to a little prayer and something else, and in another situation it might not be prayer you need, it may be something else, you know.
Right.
So what other things do you practice?
Uh, Prayer's one. Patience. Still
Patience.
working. Still working on that.
That, right?
Yes, it's like a big number two. Also, three for me is putting myself in other people's shoes. When before I was walking with God and stuff, I would always get really upset real quickly if somebody didn't do anything, or they didn't like follow what I was doing, and I never really understood why they were that way. Because if I'm this way and I'm happy, you should be too. But yet you don't really know what they're really going through behind closed doors. They may look fine on the outside, but unless you're walking in your shoes, you don't know. So it's prayer, one, two is patience, three is putting myself in their shoes, and four is just being okay with being me. That's a big one for me. I've had to struggle with that, my whole life growing up, but more so recently as you get older, you start feeling as if you should have this if they have this, or you should be with this if they have that. So, and social media plays a lot into that because, everything isn't portrayed as it seems, right? You want to have like the big house or the car or the husband or the kids, but you don't know, what it took to get there for the people. And we talked about that I think a couple of weeks ago on my Bible study about not believing everything you see and understanding the person's journey who they're trying to be. So, those are my four things that I try to practice, even before with everything with God, just in my life. It takes a lot for me to be patient, and it takes a lot for me to understand other people who aren't like me. And I feel like it's a sign of growth, and it's a sign of understanding others, and and trying to and being okay with just being you. It's okay just to be who you are. You don't have to pretend to be somebody else just for some likes, or pretend to do this just to get attention. Because at the end of the day, God really knows who you really are. So you're only fooling yourself, right? And I've learned that the hard way. So that's really kind of my little mini toolbox toolkit, as you said.
The many too much. The Bible study, have you found that in studying the Bible, you've been able to translate it to how you're living your life now, and it's supportive in that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Absolutely. I
You,
definitely agree. I've only been with these young ladies for about like a month, maybe, but I look forward to it like nobody's business. The camaraderie, the friendships we're building, and the relations back and forth has been huge, at least for me. So I definitely value what they have to say as young, African Americans, young ladies, moms, wives, to give their time up and to talk about different things and being so vulnerable. I believe that's a thing that we kind of all share. So definitely this Bible study group and a few other groups I'm with have really shaped, who I am and how I see things. It's a different perspective. It's a good thing. So it's a good thing.
very good, because yeah, I found it very interesting, be it that you were in Bible study, right? And how everything that you do, right? It was so interesting also that you go to Bible study, you're doing the music, you wrote the book, right? And I've watched a couple of your podcasts, right?
Mhm.
And you're very much interested in how we are going to live now and how we're going to move forward, and giving people history and information about that is was very interesting, right? And I think as a young person, um, talking about being heard, right? And having the space to be heard and having a message. What's the message? If you have like here's your moment. This is what I would like, you know, to
Right.
say. And here's where I am and what I'm thinking. I wanted to talk about voting and your perspective on voting because there's a lot of young people, if they're not happy with the candidates, they're just in
Mhm.
this space right now, right? And you know, you just don't want to say, "Oh, we've had such a rough time. Let's just get this person out," right? That doesn't resonate, right?
Right. No.
Right. You just because I would just say, listen, guys, let's just get them out and go, right? But that's not resonating with young people. Where do you stand with all that? I'm sure you probably say, let's get him out too, but that's not, I don't know.
No, I do say that. I've been saying that for the past 4 years, but I realize it doesn't do anything. Of course, we want him out, but again, God says love all children, so we deal with what is. But I am going to vote. I am choosing to vote in person. I will stand in those lines 6 feet
Yeah.
apart, but I am going to vote because it's very important to do that now. That's a PSA for everybody listening. You got to go vote because you can't say all this other stuff and marching and protesting and saying all these other things, and then when it comes to voting, y'all are MIA, and then you can't get mad if you win because you had a chance. So I'm big on having my voice heard, whether it's big or small. And so, yes, I will vote. And I know a lot of people, even in my generation, they're saying, well, what's the point? My voice doesn't matter. My opinion doesn't matter. Well, it does at the end of the day, because like I say in the book, our ancestors fought for us to be able to vote. So they didn't just do that just because they were bored. They felt that, they, as Americans, had the same right as you did. So it's in a way your duty to vote because we can now. So I think everybody should vote, whether it's by mail, in person, however your state is doing it, definitely should vote because it counts. And it's only sounds bad, but it's only going to get worse if we don't do anything. And even if he is out and Biden wins, you never know what the outcome is of that too. So I still think everybody should vote because it's important. Your voice matters, it really does. And I feel like a lot of millennials really don't want to be bothered with the politics side. They want to be focused on the here and now and not seeing, 4 years down the line. But I think it helps to see all spectrums of the scale when it comes to people running, the government and your state and the world, the free world. So I am a big advocate on voting any way you do it. Even if it wasn't COVID, I would still do it in person. So I think it's really important to vote because, if, like I said, if you want to see anything get done, it has to start with option A, which is to do something and go vote.
It sounds like you got the message, of voting is important, right?
Mhm.
And the key is, we don't have a lot of time left, but getting that message out there to the younger people that it's not just about voting is the step. It's a step. It's a very important step for us to move forward. But it's then what else? What else after that, right?
Right.
But yeah, and getting that message to them, you know um, how do they hear it? What do we have to say? Everything's a mess because it looks
Right.
like we're all confused too. Right? So talking about getting a message, right? It's really what would you say have been your biggest challenges for the past 6 months? We've been on lockdown since March, right? What have been some of your biggest challenges? I think in your home with your parents, and the family and all of that. What were you about to go get a job? What have been your challenges?
Well, I
I know
was
you working before, like everybody had to, like.
I was working in retail, actually, in the mall. So that kind of stopped in March. Because you're with people, you're bringing up customers and stuff like that. So I mean, it sounds minimal to other things that are going on, but for me personally, it's been working. I am on unemployment, but trying to find a job now it's even harder than 6 months ago. But being in retail, and like you said, I do live with my parents who are in that category, in that age group. So it's been hard to find a job because I still have to come home with them. So that's been a challenging thing, you know, and not really been going out too many places. Like maybe
Okay.
the past 3 months, going to like the supermarket or CVS or a walk. But before that, it was just at home all the time because, you know, I have to worry about them and what I'm bringing, you know, bringing home and stuff like that. So that's been a challenge, balancing somewhat social life with COVID. So at least for me, that's been the issue. Even so now, I haven't gone back to work because, like I said, I don't live by myself. So I made the decision. This is more important than, you know, a mini job right now. So
That's been the most challenging thing, balancing your life
with theirs, right?
with theirs,
Which is
right?
no, it's fine. It was frustrating in the beginning, but now it's really it's okay. Safety always is important. So
Yeah, that is interesting. What coping mechanisms do you use? Is it the music, you escape in the music, or what are some of the coping mechanisms that you use to support you during this time?
it has been my music, and interesting. It's not even playing the music; it's just listening to music. I just listen to music, not just for my projects, but just for my pleasure. Listening to music of different genres, different backgrounds, just kind of calms me. Even when I'm upset or just need to just relax. That's kind of been my coping mechanism. Outside of praying, of course, but listening to music always seemed to calm my soul. So I always go to that whenever I need like a minute or two. So.
Um, I would like to give you a moment to share one of your chapters with us.
Oh, like
Uh,
read or just talk about it.
Whatever you want to do, and like, highlight one of your chapters. You can read, you can talk about it, because I think it's a great, great book.
Well, thank you. Um,
And
I,
this is what you like to do, so I'm giving you the opportunity, right? It's like now you're sharing the book.
no, that's okay. I'll just talk about chapter 8. That's kind of one of my favorite chapters. It's titled "The Lack of Knowledge." Um, like I said, with the title of the book, from my perspective, the truth about our history about African Americans in this country, and I feel like that ties in with the chapter, the lack of knowledge, because if you don't have enough or the right knowledge, it's kind of hard to move through life with the right goggles on, if that makes sense. So when I said the history that they didn't teach you in history class is they always say school is important and knowledge is power. You know, if you have the right knowledge, it can get you far. If you have the wrong knowledge, it a bunch of other things. And being even for me in my classes, they never taught a lot of stuff on African Americans. Like I said, it was always about the Civil War or Martin Luther King Jr. That was really it. All the history books were the same book every year, and I always wondered why that was because there was a whole not movement, but a whole 400 years of slavery, and why was that never really taught in class outside of slave ships and Abraham Lincoln? Like it never really connected till I got older, and I would see all these issues, and I felt with that chapter as well as the ancestors chapter, I felt I wanted to talk about the right knowledge that isn't being taught in history class or even in homes. Sometimes you have parents who don't know the right knowledge, that they're teaching their kids the wrong knowledge. And it could be from their childhood, it could be where they live, or it could also be, you know, some people like to be just stuck in their ways, in the ways of 50 years ago. They don't want to change to what is now. Like I've seen instances of people still understand the interracial couples, black and white or whatever. I don't understand that. I mean, everybody should be able to love who they love, but it just boggles the mind where you have some people still in 2020 with so much hatred, you know, in their hearts. And I talk about that in that chapter. You know, it also comes from your childhood. You know, like I said, you meet different walks of life throughout life, and you can't really know what they're going through unless you talk to them or walk in their shoes, like I've been saying. And the right knowledge, if we had the right knowledge, even with Trump, if we had the right knowledge, I believe we could be so much further than where we are now, with everything that has been going on, even before COVID, right? And even during COVID, all that stuff has happened should really have not had happened. So the right knowledge, the right words that are being spewed out does literally save and kill lives. If you're saying the wrong things, it's harmful. And words do have power, as you know. Words do have power. Whether you're man at the top or you're a blogger on social media, words do have power. So I talk a lot about that in that chapter. That ties into the next chapter. But for me, that was a challenging chapter. There were some chapters I had to step away from and come back to because I kind of got worked up. It was emotional, but to me, that chapter I feel like is one that people should really absorb. And what I do on my podcast, I always take a few minutes to decompress and then discuss because I want the chapter to linger for a bit instead of going to the next thing. So that chapter to me is a big one. I haven't gotten there yet. I'm not on that episode yet, but that chapter to me is a big one in the book. So
right, like having like information instead of like information, right? Having the information,
the right information,
and the knowledge.
That's true. Yes,
that is true. That is interesting because I think about information that was shared, and I think about it's still the same. They're hard to have conversations.
Right.
People want to push it to the back, right? And if we don't talk about it, maybe it's not happening and maybe we don't see it, right? And I think now we're in a time where we want to talk about it. We need to bring it forth. We're tired of pushing it down, pushing it down. Let's bring it forth. Let's talk about it and let's make a change. And it is really a lot of difficult conversations have to be had, and I think that that's a part of what's going on now. Being able to have those conversations during this time.
It's true. It's true. Difficult conversations are never my favorite because I don't like confrontation, but sometimes they need to be had to get resolution. So I do agree with that.
So I'm gonna say to you as talking to me, I'm a boomer, right? What will you say to me, right? From your perspective, like right now, how we can support you, right? And then I also want you to talk to your peers, right? From that perspective too. Okay, go.
I would say to I hate using the word elderly. That word is not even relevant to
okay, right.
the wiser people of our generation. We need help. We can't do this alone because, as you said earlier, you guys have more experience with this. You guys have more knowledge in this area, and I commend the peers and the millennials who are out there on the forefront. But we can't do it alone. Like I said, in a way, we're kind of fighting not your battle, but we're fighting for our lives and your life as well. Because, like I said, past 50 years, nothing has changed. So it's like a never-ending cycle. So I say we need your help. We need everybody's help. Everybody's hand needs to be in the pot to pitch in to make somewhat of a change because we can't do this alone. We've made some strides, but having more help, having wiser help, having more minds who have a greater knowledge, a greater view on this really would help. And to peers, my peers and millennials, like I said, I'm happy to see us out there, doing the protests, the peaceful protests, the marches, joining organizations, starting organizations. I mean, we didn't have that about 10 years ago. So I will say we've made some progress. We just need that little nudge to get us, over that last little hurdle. I think, from my view, at least from how I feel, from what I've seen.
That's interesting too, and I think that we would love to help too. and I always think, how though, how can I know I don't want to march, right? At that point, I'm not going to march, right? I know that's not going to march, but I support it. How can I support? What can I do? What can we do, to support the movement? How can we be as supportive as you guys are out there in the street doing the marching, right? And we could be in the background. What might that look like, though? Have we figured out what that looks like? I know a lot of different organizations are coming up and are growing, and there's more awareness around everything, and it will take time. And I see us moving forward. I do wonder, you know, what more can we do? Well, how can we support? What can we put together? What kinds of organizations? What kinds of movement? What kinds of things to really support you guys is where I stand, and bring us all together. Because you mentioned it earlier when you said we all have to work together in this movement, and we all are willing to, work together.
Yeah, it does take, like they say, it takes a village to raise a child. It takes time to fix the country. And I will say to your other point real quickly, platforms. We all have platforms, whatever it is, whatever creativity you aspire to, use your platform to reach out to your generation, generations, other people who not don't have that fight left, but want to help in other ways that they think is in their means, right? Like with
right. Everybody can make a contribution.
their means. Yeah, right. Everybody can make a contribution, whatever it is. And if you have a platform, whether it's a radio show, a podcast, music, you're a singer, like the basketball players, what they did, you can use that to reach out to the audience. I think that's always one way to do it too, using your platform to have people listen, because you have listeners, people listening and watching you and following you and stuff like that. And I think that's one way you can do it to reach millennials, especially millennials, because everybody's on social media. So definitely.
Right. Oh my God, that's the whole thing. Social media is the thing, right? That we have to learn how to navigate, though. That's it. It's like it's a whole new world. It's a whole new world, especially for us, right? We got to jump in there and get into this whole new social media world to learn everything, right? To be able to function. And then I'm in it. I stay on top of it, just because I know it's the future, and I know we have to do it and we have to be there. But yeah, social media is making everything so different, right?
Yes, I agree.
So we're going to be wrapping up soon. I want you to talk about what's upcoming for you. Is there anything else you would like to share? And how can people reach you and watch your podcast and everything?
Well, I don't want to showboat too much because I'm not that kind of person.
Showboat, right?
But I will say with the music aspect, I do have a new EP, which is a combination of songs, 6 or 7 songs. If you guys don't know what that means, I just wanted to, not to be funny, just some people don't know what EP means, but
as we talk about albums, right? But I don't think you use the word album anymore, do you?
No, we do, but an album is different than the EP.
I know what an EP is, a shorter version, like a few songs.
Like 5, 6, 7 songs, really.
Okay, and an album has a front and a back, 14 songs. Okay, is that an EP is a shorter version? I do know a little bit, right?
Okay, I'm sorry. You're right. I apologize. But the other people who don't, that's what it is. But I do have that coming out, and another EP with another artist that's coming out with the music.
Did you write the songs or what?
Well, I usually make the music. So I create the songs. But I do have an artist I'm working with who he actually writes his own music and sings with it. So he's the creative in that aspect. I'm over here.
Okay.
And with the podcast, that's available every Sunday night at 6:30. It's distributed, so you can listen to it. I normally don't like doing things on Sunday. It's kind of the rest day, but I feel like with my podcast and what I'm talking about, it's a good way to start your week. And without, outside of that, it's really all I'm working on is just the podcast and the music. But you can listen to podcasts on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, as well as SoundCloud. It's available. And you can find me on Instagram and Twitter and SoundCloud at Lana and Pure. It's one word. So no extraness, just one word. Lana and Pure, one word. That's what you can find me on. I'm not on Facebook that much, but Instagram I'm on, and Snapchat and Twitter. But I'm mostly on SoundCloud because I'm doing my music and stuff like that. But all one word, all same photo, so you can find me. I know people have different things, but I'm just the same thing everywhere. So.
And your message is, music is my life. No.
It is. It actually is. No, but what I always say to people is never stop creating. That's what I always say. You always have something to give to this world, so never stop creating. So that's my message. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm so happy that you were able to join me tonight.
Of course.
And you have a great day. Keep making the music. We'll look for you on SoundCloud, on Instagram. And thank you again for coming tonight.
Thank you guys both. I appreciate it. It's a great opportunity, so I'm humbled. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
You too.
Well, everybody, thank you for joining me tonight in Conversations with Reverend G. It was nice having Lana Impure here talking to us about what her spiritual practices are. And I'm here every Monday with different guests so that we can talk about the different spiritual practices that can go into your spiritual toolkit. On Monday nights, I come to you with messages from every person that has done music, sports, writing, ministry. So come back and join me on Mondays because I'm here to help you bring joy, live your best life with grace and ease. I like to bring healing messages. I like for you to walk away inspired. And today I will leave you with a mindful moment. And in those mindful moments is where we take a breath, we recalibrate, and we take a moment to be with ourselves. And tonight the mindful moment is about self-care. And it's really a simple one today. And it's about loving yourself. How do you love yourself? How do you really know when you're loving yourself? What things do you do to love yourself? How do you take care of you? So in your mindful moment, love yourself. It's Reverend G, and I'm here every Monday night on WEMS radio from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m., bringing you spiritual conversations. You can find me on Instagram as Reverend Grenetta, on Facebook as Reverend Grenetta Mason, and also on YouTube. So I'll see you next week. Have a great week.